global impact through meaningful and dynamic connections. Did you know the 2021 Rotary theme is Rotary Opens Opportunities? It's an invitation to endless opportunities for all of us. I want to thank Andy Moats and Bruce Lindner as our greeters and welcomers today, Mary Jo Jamie for our social media and PR, Diane Joytner with our invocation, and Bruce Lindner with the welcoming of our visiting Rotarians and guests. Now we will ask Rick Urschel to lead us in or sing for us actually, the national anthem, and then we will join together for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the peril. Oh, I totally messed up the lyrics. Oh man, that's embarrassing. Where were we?
Ramparts.
O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bless us, Lord, with these our gifts, prosperous in our labor, and grant that we may become true and loyal Rotarians, exemplifying the object of Rotary in our services, in our communities, and to our families. We say this in thy name, amen.
Long time no see. Can't get rid of me.
We have any visiting Rotarians? No visiting Rotarians. Okay. Well, it looks like we have a guest of Diane Joytner. I think he was in the PGA tournament yesterday. Mr. Bryson, did you take fourth place in the tournament?
I wish.
You've got the same kind of chest and arms that guy Bryson was playing with yesterday. He looked like a football player. No relation?
No.
Oh, unfortunately, huh? What did he make, about $700,000 yesterday? Hoy is a broker with McCollany Realty. So, Diane, please stand and have your guests stand. Welcome, Hoy.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Hoy.
I believe that's the only one. All right. Do we have guests there?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Would you stand with your guests, please?
Sorry. I thought I'd sneak him in after a couple of times. Jeremiah Shambo is joining Scott Yates.
DeChambeau? He was in the tournament yesterday as well. And he looks just like that guy. Like the list way.
Hi, Jeremiah.
For those that don't watch golf, those are two guys that look just like that.
Really?
Welcome.
Thank you, Bruce. We have a couple of graduating seniors with us today that are recipients of our Rotary Foundation Scholarship. If Barb Regnitz would come up and introduce them. Come on up.
So I'm so excited. These are the last two that we will be introducing to you this year. We have Marissa Carson and John Fry, and we'll let ladies go first.
All right, hi, I'm Marissa. I I graduated from Valpo High School. I'll be going down to Purdue, leaving on Friday. I'll be studying animation, and I want to also study 2D arts because I'd love to be a character designer for an animation firm.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Fry. I also just graduated from Valpo, and I'll be going to IU, if you can't tell. I will be majoring in finance. I just got my housing assignment today, and I don't know when I leave now. So I'm a little behind, but I'm so excited to go, and I hope to use my finance to become a
financial advisor.
Financial advisor, sorry. So, thank you for having me, and thank you for the scholarship. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, Marissa and John, and congratulations to both of you, and good luck in your next chapter of life. We do have water bottles for you for being here today. They promote one of Rotary's areas of service, which is clean water. So I'll get those to you in just a second. Annetta Jones is here for our Sergeant at Arms.
Well, to begin with, I'd like to say congratulations to our birthdays and anniversaries. And I think I'm supposed to read down this list. So pardon me if I get these names messed up. But George Carberry for birthdays, Ellen DeMartinez, Matt Evans, Larry Holt, and by the way, everyone should put in $5 if they hear their name called. If you hear it called twice, that's 10. Adam Johnson, Doug Mock, Gus Olympitus, Sergi Pathasia, John Payton, and Matt Zerbriggen. And by the way, it looks like Adam Johnson, is he in here? It's his birthday today, so if you see him, wish him a happy birthday. And it was Matt's birthday yesterday. Gosh, I have all sorts of information up here. Okay, for anniversary, we have George Carberry, Thomas Carroll, Sean Dardo. Is that right? Yeah. That doesn't matter. Ray Hewlett, Marcy Jans, Lisa Kiger, Tom Long, Leslie Plesac, also Sikorsky. I saw him in here. Okay, Jeff Bantner and Jan Tudor. All right, y'all, pony up. And I missed my birthday last month, so I've got my $5. All right, any good news? Good news? Well, you're all here today. That's good news. Yes, sir.
I guess I'll go real quick. Usually I don't do good news, but I'm happy to report it's a little bittersweet, but my son will be leaving the house on Monday. He got a full ride to Washington and Lee University, so that's pretty exciting. And I have to tell you this quick story. John Fry, who's also, he's an outstanding student athlete and a good friend of my son's, they traded a piano for a Chevy Blazer, which in turn they traded for a 1997 Chevy minivan, restored it last weekend, and drove it around Lake Michigan. So we have some pretty innovative and thrifty high school graduates in the Valparaiso community.
That's awesome. Way to go with ingenuity. All right. How many of you have heard about that mysterious seed from China? Well, at the Extension Office, we've been talking about it, but did you know you might receive other things besides just seeds from China? You may be receiving just junk or seeds, and the Federal Trade Commission warns us to be on alert because some unscrupulous sellers might be sending random stuff to show payment companies like PayPal or Visa or whatever you used to pay, tracking numbers to prove that they delivered something to you. So you may have ordered something, but you get some kind of junk instead. So if it happens to you, you have to tell your payment company that you didn't get what you ordered. You want to make sure that you let them know that, as well as whoever you ordered it from. And you want to tell them right away. So you'll tell them that you got seeds instead of a twin-size bed. You know, there's a difference. You didn't get anything, or you got something other than what you ordered. If the seller tries to use a tracking number to verify that they delivered something to you, then you need to be able to point out to them that the weight didn't equal what you ordered. So just keep that information so that you have it in case you have to dispute the charges. So the other thing that you might be aware of, you think, oh, well, I just didn't get what I ordered. I'm out $20, not a big deal if that's what the purchase was. So the other thing that they might be doing is they receive they send you something, and now they can put an online review, and it might be under your name, or they may have set up an account in your name. So you really want to be alert to something like this happening to you. So in the meantime, you want to watch your online accounts. If you spot any activity that isn't yours, report it and change your password. And then let's hope that 2020 just doesn't get any weirder. All right, good luck and have a great week. And you want to take the money?
Thank you, Annetta. General announcements before we get to today's speaker. If everyone would please keep in your thoughts and prayers Linda Popovich. She is a fellow Rotarian. She is in the hospital with COVID, so she could use your prayers.
Did I hear she was on a vent?
Yes.
Oh, no.
So please keep her in your thoughts and prayers. But then another special thought, we would like to offer congratulations to another fellow Rotarian, John Walsh, for his appointment by Mayor Matt Murphy to the Valparaiso Utilities Board. Also, a couple of events coming up. The golf outing is September 10th, so please form your team and get a registration form into Greg Gott's truck as soon as possible. Again, the Valparaiso Rotary Centennial Project, the pledge sheets are due by the end of the year, with the money due the following year. And then I want to thank Deb Walpo for our August newsletter. There are some hard copies on the front table if you would like to take one upon leaving today. So with that, does anyone else have anything else? Doug?
Quick question. I look around the room and I see respectable people not wearing masks and respectable people wearing masks. What are we supposed to do here?
I believe the guidelines are that if you are not eating, you're supposed to have your mask on.
Thank you.
Yes.
What about drinking?
If you're not eating or drinking, you're supposed to have your mask on. All right, well with that, I will invite Chris Kraus to come up and introduce our speaker today.
All right, this one's pretty easy. I'm introducing Rex Richards, who all of you know. Rex grew up in Anderson, Indiana, graduated from Indiana University and Notre Dame's Chamber of Commerce Institute program. Over the past 35 years, he has led chambers of commerce and economic development corporations in 3 states and 7 communities. He is currently the president and CEO of the Greater Valparaiso Chamber of Commerce and Valparaiso's Economic Development Corporation, and has been leading the chamber since 2006. These are a few things that Rex did not share in his bio. He was selected as the Chamber President of the Year in 2012, and he has given briefings to 3 presidents. He has met with England's Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, Tony Blair, the Premier of China, the Prime Minister of Japan, as well as ranking members of the Vatican. So with that, let's give Rex, who's done a lot for the Valparaiso community, a warm welcome.
Thank you, Chris. You know, most of you probably thought that if I was going to give a talk today, I was going to talk about the economy. Well, I'm not. But I will say this, the economy in Valpo is very strong. We have companies, very outstanding companies that are looking around. And so as a community, we're blessed. But I thought today, with everything that's going on and the difficult times that a lot of people are having, I'd like to share with you some personal comments, and it's so hard to stay positive. But I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to be given some great advice from some really wonderful people. And that advice has kept me positive through good times and bad times my whole life. And I wanted to share what 4 of those concepts are that I rely on, that has kept me very positive, and I would like to share them with each of you and offer suggestions. My very first individual that helped me develop a sense of being positive was a female bank president owner. In one of my chambers, she was the chairman of the chamber, and I got to know her, and we had many meetings together. And I said to her, I said, Ruth, her name was Ruth Smith, how in the world did you ever come about buying a bank? And she said, Rex, you know, it really boiled down to just being very practical. And so she started to tell me the story. When her and her husband got married, they were having difficult times, and she needed a washing machine. So the logical, practical thing, she said, Rex, was for me to go to work. So I interviewed for a job, and it was an unusual job. It was to be the assistant to a bank president who was blind. And my job was to read all the correspondence that came to him, to read the financial statements that came to him, so that he would have an understanding of what people were wanting to know, you know, the communication. And she said it was a tremendous opportunity for a person to learn banking, because all of the major decisions that came to the bank usually ended up on the president's desk, and I got to read all of the important correspondence to him. I saw how he made decisions. So as time went on, he had confidence in me and moved me from one location to another in the bank. And she said, I had a tremendous practical education in banking. And then one day, he decided to sell. And I thought the practical thing to do was to buy the bank. So I contacted some of my key people, and she said, I'd been buying stock as the years went on, and she said, I ended up buying the bank. And she said, one thing I forgot to tell you, Rex, I also got the washing machine. And I thought, that is tremendous. And when you think about it, life can get, for many of us, it seems very complicated. But if we look at life from a very practical standpoint, it's amazing how easy decisions can be made when you look at things from a practical point of view. That was my first trait that I developed from listening to a very, very successful lady. Be very practical. The second story I'd like to tell is when I was in Kansas City, I had the opportunity to meet with a very successful businessman who was moving a couple new stores to Kansas City. And he was having trouble with the planning department because they constantly wanted him to make changes in the design of his buildings. So it ended up one day, the store manager called me and said, Rex, we have some key people coming from corporate headquarters, and they'd like to talk to you about the planning department in the city and what suggestions you can make. So I met him at this restaurant and walked in, and he took me over to the table, And he introduced me to the president and CEO of the company. There weren't a lot of people around at the table, just he and I. And the local manager, he said, I'm sorry, I've got to go back to work. You two can talk things over. So throughout the morning, as we had breakfast, you know, the businessman was telling me how much he had in common and how much he felt the importance of chambers were to help businesses grow and thrive. And come to find out, this gentleman had been chairman of his local chamber of commerce, and he had also been on the city council. And he said, it's amazing the opportunities that I could see when I was involved at the Chamber of Commerce. And he said, I've always tried to look at opportunities and take advantage of opportunities. And as we sat in the restaurant, he was kind of looking around, and I could tell he was really enamored with the restaurant. And he said, this looks like kind of a locally owned restaurant. Do you know if it's franchised? And I said, no, I don't. I think it's a new one. Your store is right next to it, so I'm sure it's a great location. So when we finished our conversation, we got up, and it was one of the restaurants where you pay as you go out the door. So I stood there with him, and I wanted to thank him, and he picked up the check, and he wrote on a piece of paper a number. And he asked, when he paid his bill, he said, is the manager here? And the person was the assistant manager, and he said, well, yes. And he said, could I see him? And so all of a sudden, the guy goes and brings the manager over. And the individual didn't say who he was, handed him a piece of paper, and he said, when I get back to my store, I'm going to call, and I'd like you to call this number, give this to your owner. We have another location in another part of town. We would just love to have this restaurant over on that location also. But please call this number, and I'll tell them that there'll be somebody calling from your restaurant. So the individual finished the transaction. They gave him his receipt, and as soon as he walked out the door, I said, thank you very much. I appreciate the breakfast. And I wanted to see what they were going to do with the piece of paper. And the gentleman, as soon as he left, he looked at me and he said, who in the world does that guy think he is? My goodness. And he took the piece of paper and he dropped it in the waste can. I leaned over to the waste can and I pulled it out, and I said, I think it might be worthwhile for you to actually contact your ownership. This gentleman was very serious. And he said, who did that guy think he was? Some big shot? And I said, I'll tell you who the guy was. He's the richest man in the world. That was Sam Walton. Opportunity. I learned a great lesson from a very successful business person. My third characteristic is faith. Excuse me, hope. I had the chance to be with a government official and spent an evening having dinner with a few other people. And it was a lady who was very, very successful in her own right, and she was in government, and she was in a very high-ranking capacity. And she was telling me, as we talked, and I said, how did you ever decide you wanted to get involved in government? And she said, well, I'll tell you, how I decided was my dad was a corner grocer. He had a small shop, and I took care of the books for him, and I helped him stock the store. And I saw all the regulation that government was asking my dad to comply with. and it was just impossible. And she said, I became convinced that if I could, it was my hope that I could someday make my country more free enterprise, like your country. She said, it is so important, and I have received so much flack from members of my party because I am very pro-business. And she said, again, I hope that when my tenure as Prime Minister is over, that I will have made an impact in bringing the free enterprise system back to the United Kingdom. The person I was speaking with was Margaret Thatcher. Tremendous lady and a tremendous free enterprise person. That taught me a lot about hope. She said, I always wanted to do this, and it's my hope. She had a drive, and she had a determination, and she had hope that she could do that. The last story I'd like to tell that gave me confidence and gave me a great deal of security in times of trouble was when I was in Florida. I had colon cancer, and it was really pretty bad. And once they told me that I had colon cancer, I had to quit my job because I couldn't work and go through the surgery, the chemo, and the radiation. And the first thing I had to do was have surgery on my colon. And I'll never forget, I was on a table next to the operating room, and for some reason there was a hang up in the operating room. I had a blanket over me, and I was cold. I only had a blanket on. There was nothing under the blanket except just me. And I was shaking. And I'd say 25% of the shaking was because I was cold. 75% of the shaking was I knew what was going to happen to me was pretty significant, and I was scared to death. And I was thinking, how in the world can I get through this? How can I think, believe me, I was saying the Lord's Prayer. I was quoting the Bible to myself. And then I thought of a meeting that I had with the clergyman 20 years before. And it was very interesting. We were of different faiths. We were sitting next to each other. And he reminded me of my father. Same height, about my height. I could look at him, eyeball to eyeball. He had gray hair, like my father. I guess like me now. And he was so kind. He was from Europe, and he had a brogue, and I had difficulty understanding him. But in our conversation, he was telling me how during his time as a youth, he was ordered to be part of the Hitler Youth. And because he wanted to go into the clergy, that he had two choices. He could either go into the Hitler Youth and be part of that, or he could be killed. And he said there wasn't a lot of hope there. And he said it was a real struggle. And he said, I came to believe that what really matters when you have nothing else left, he said, it really boils down to love. He said, money doesn't do any good. Wealth, possessions. He said, if you're really at the end of your rope, as he was, he said, I started thinking about my father, my mother, my relatives, And I was so proud and happy that I had their love. So I was thinking about that conversation. They came and got me, moved my gurney into the operating room, and I was out. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in my room, and one of my former employees, because I had to quit my job because with all the things that I had to do with my cancer, I couldn't work. So he was in there with my wife, and as I woke up, they had the television set on, and I realized, you know, they were in the process of picking a pope. And my former employee leans over and he said, Rex, didn't you have a dinner with a cardinal from Germany? And I said, and I wasn't clear yet. I hadn't totally come out of the operation. And I said, yes. And I said, what he said to me helped me get through this operation. Rex, he just became Pope Benedict. So, faith, hope, and love, Corinthians 13, chapter 13, verse. Faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. So those are the principles that keep me positive, and I offer them to you to help you get through difficult times. Thank you.
For our gratitude, we will contribute a children's book to the Valpo Public Library in your name.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next week's program will be presented by Jane Simsack. It will be Dr. Scott Buck. AM Rotary will, at some point, working towards AM Rotary. If John and Marissa could stay for pictures, that would be great for just a few minutes after the meeting. Does anyone else have any comments or announcements before we would close the meeting? No? All right, if you could stand and please join me for the 4-way test.
Things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
We'll take pictures without the masks on.
Congratulations to you two again. And again,
But his brother had been